Thank you all for coming. My name is Rick Tate. I am chairman of the Pickens County Republican Club. And as always, we'll start with a prayer, but with a quote and then a prayer. The quote is from our first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln. "Sir, my concern is not whether God is on our side. My greatest concern is to be on God's side, for God is always right." If you'll join me in prayer. Dear Lord, please bless our community, our state, and our country. We pray that you would always give us the guidance necessary to always be on your side. In Jesus' name, amen. You don't notice it till everybody gets quiet. Now, if you'd all join me and stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You know, the one word that always catches my attention when I say the pledge is republic. We are not a democracy, in my humble opinion, and according to the Founding Fathers, I believe we are a constitutional representative republic. There is a difference. And as the old joke goes, democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. But now, if you would, we are a auxiliary group of the South Carolina Republican Party. And in recognition of that, I offer you the South Carolina Republican Party creed. I do not choose to be a common man. It is my right to be uncommon. If I seek opportunity, not security, I want to take the calculated risk, to dream and build, to fail and succeed. I refuse to barter incentive for dole. I prefer the challenges of life to guaranteed scrutiny, the thrill of fulfillment to the stale calm of utopia. I will not trade my freedom for beneficence, nor my dignity for a handout. I will never cower before any master save my God. It is my heritage to stand erect, proud, and unafraid, to think and act for myself, enjoy the benefit of my creation, to face the whole world boldly and say, I am a free American. There's a lot of wisdom in those words. Elected officials, I don't see an elected official, but I do see a couple of candidates. Clay, which Clay Counts is running for State House to replace Davy Hyatt, who's stepping down, and Joe, tell me your last name, Joe, I'm sorry. Joe Burgett is going to challenge Philip Bowers in the 3rd District for the State House there in the Republican primary. Anybody I'm missing? Okay. There will be a complete video of this available to anybody to anybody and everybody. It will be on our Facebook page, the Pickens County Republican Club Facebook page, and it will also be available on the website, pickenscountytownhall.com. So you can, if you want to help David, share it around and make sure your friends know about it. The people that couldn't be here tonight, this is centered to our mission, and we only have one mission here. We have one thing that we do, and this is it right here. Voter education. It's not, I don't feel qualified to tell anybody who to vote for. So this is what this is for, to give you the information, or to help give you the information you need when you walk into the polling place. So when you pull the lever or mash the button, you have an idea as to who you were voting for, more so than something you just got out on a postcard in your mailbox. It helps to be able to stand in the same room with a candidate and look him in the eye and ask him a question and get a feel for the person. I don't think you can do it over a TV screen, and certainly not off of a postcard. So anyway, that's why me and John have been doing this for over a decade, these town halls. Yeah, long time. So I already mentioned the sign-up sheet, and I promise you the only thing it will ever be used for is to make you aware of events that we have coming up. All right, to the main event, Mr. Pascoe. It's my privilege to introduce David Pascoe. He earned his law degree from the University of South Carolina of Law. He has worked as a prosecutor in South Carolina for more than 3 decades, excuse me. During his career, he has served in the South Carolina Attorney General's office, including as a senior assistant deputy attorney general. I believe that was under or Attorney General then, McMaster, is that right?
If you read one of my opponent's biographies, because I've got 3 decades.
I Googled.
Yeah, I've been an assistant solicitor for 12 years and a solicitor for 21.
Please correct anything I've gotten wrong. It's not intentional, I promise. But anyway, that sounded good to me. You were a senior, it says here, a senior assistant deputy attorney general. But anyway, if that's wrong, I apologize.
Go ahead.
Okay. where he handled criminal prosecutions and investigations, he also worked in regional prosecution offices within the state. That's what I apologize. I should have asked you for the bio.
I'm going to talk about myself. I don't need an introduction.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Without further ado,
Yeah.
David Pascoe. And seriously,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I thank you for coming, and let me move this stuff out of your way.
Hey, can y'all see me over this podium?
I'm gonna move it. If you want it, I'll leave it.
It doesn't. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Thank you. Look, this is why I did this yesterday. Yesterday, I was the keynote speaker at a MAGA meeting because they support me. And I told them I'm only going to be introduced by ordained ministers from now because that's who introduced me at the MAGA meeting. So, no, I appreciate it. Don't worry about that. Look, I want to start off by apologizing to every one of you. I have a policy not to eat at events and go walk and shake hands and meet everybody while they're eating and pass out my own cards. But I also have another policy that when ribs and fried chicken and barbecue are on the menu, that comes first. So I'm very sorry. But as y'all got to see and got to meet her, I have the best wife in the world because she let me sit there and eat while she passed out the cards, and that's Christy in the back. So I appreciate it. Yeah, big applause. As I've said many times, I did my Sicilian mother very proud, and I married a Sicilian woman. Okay? And I did that for a number of reasons. She's mean, and I have to have someone mean. She serves as my driver and my bodyguard. So be careful. And if you don't think she's holding, you are sadly mistaken because we are big Second Amendmenters and she's a better shot than I am. So be careful when you approach me. I have been a prosecutor for 33 years. That's all I've ever wanted to be for the most part. The last 21 years, I've been the elected solicitor for Orangeburg, Calhoun, and Dorchester counties. That's the first judicial circuit driving towards Charleston. And I want you to think about this as I continue to talk to you. I didn't even think about this till this weekend when I was reminded of it by one of the Republican sheriffs of Dorchester County. In the 20-plus years that I have been the solicitor of the First Circuit, even as a Democrat, every Republican sheriff and clerk of court in my circuit has supported me in every single election. No other solicitor in the state can say that of either party. And they do that because of my record. I have successfully tried several hundred violent crime indictments. Haven't lost one since the 90s. I'm the only candidate who's put people on death row. I sent a cop killer to the executioner. I've been on court TV several times. I've tried nobody murder cases. I've done it all. But I tell you all that also because the most challenging days of my 33 years as a prosecutor was when I was your special prosecutor during the State House corruption probe. And some of you may not even have been living in South. How many have lived in South Carolina now for less than 10 years? Okay, well, I'll be reminding you I'll let you know who I am. But the rest of you, I'm going to remind you. I was the special prosecutor during the State House corruption probe. And it was challenging because a number of other solicitors turned down the opportunity to prosecute those corrupt legislators. One solicitor called it, quote, a hornet's nest. And he was right. I've got the stings to prove it and the scars. It was challenging because those corrupt legislators that I was calling into court, who elects those judges? The legislators. Yes, ma'am. The legislators. It's like being, as my friend Joe White says, I'm going to mention him a couple times today. He's a representative in the State House. It's like being from Carolina or Clemson, being from Clemson, and all the referees are from South Carolina. But despite those challenges and obstacles, I issued a state grand jury report that outlines the corruption in South Carolina, and I would implore you all to go read it. It's at scsolicitor1.org. I can give it to you again before I leave tonight, because it outlines the corruption in the state. It outlines the weaknesses in our ethics laws, and it talks about the changes we need to make in our ethics laws. And despite those challenges, I convicted and removed from office the 5 most powerful legislators in the State House: the Speaker of the House, the President pro tem, 2 majority leaders, and when the chairman of the House Judiciary wanted a trial, I tried him, I convicted him, and he went to prison. Now, I wanted to go further. I wanted to go a whole lot further. But the because when you read the grand jury report, you will see corruption in Columbia is bipartisan and it runs deep in our state. But when I wanted to go further, the state Supreme Court told me I had to stop. They said, Pascoe, you are not the Attorney General. You're just a solicitor. So I'm running for Attorney General to get back to Columbia and finish the job that I started. Because, my friends, I know where the bones are buried. The swamp is the State House. And the leading swamp monsters are the lawyer legislators in the State House. I'm not saying that they are all bad people. The vast majority of them are great representatives. They're up there to do the right thing. They're good parents. They're up there to serve us. But there are more than a couple handful that are up there for one reason, and that's to make money off of their public position. There are lawyer legislators right now that make hundreds of thousands of dollars and even a couple millions of dollars in the last 5 years off of government contracts and what's called lawyer litigation retention agreements. Well, as I'm going to talk to you in a little bit, I'm their worst nightmare, because that's about to come to an end, because I'm going to make it impossible for public officials all the way from town councilmen to legislators to profit from their positions. Yeah, bless you. And think about this. If you think it's still not going on. Just last year, we had a state senator stand up, and I posted this on my Facebook and X account, and I hope you guys will follow me on social media after meeting me tonight and hearing that I don't just throw the word out corruption like all those other candidates that run for office. I bring the receipts and I tell you the specific examples of it, tell you the names if you want to know them. But we had a state senator just last year stand up in the Senate on the issue of tort reform and say, Mr. President, are you aware that the trial lawyers have offered me between $50,000 and $100,000 in campaign money if I vote against tort reform? Is there anybody here that doesn't think that's a potential crime? Because if you don't, you're not voting for me. I want you to stay home. I don't want you to vote for the other guys either. But that needs to be investigated. Right after he said that, the president of the Senate got apoplectic. He couldn't think of a sentence to say, so finally he put one together. He said, "We'll be adjourned." And they left. They came back 2 hours later and acted like nothing had happened. When I'm the Attorney General, my first day, I will find out what happened. Now, do you guys understand why the establishment tried to keep me off the ballot now? Do you understand, as I'm going to talk about, why the establishment and the trial lawyers and the lawyer legislators have already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on dark money on a below ballot race? Do you think they're scared? They're scared not just because of how I talk about it. They're scared because they know what I did when I was a solicitor. As the Supreme Court said, just a solicitor. Imagine what I'm going to do when I'm your Attorney General. If you want to clean up Columbia, I am the only hope, and I am the only candidate for that position. So, why switch and become a Republican? For 20 years, the Republican Party, this is the irony of the establishment trying to keep me off the ballot, and they lost because I have too much support out there from Republicans. The irony is, for over 20 years, the Republican Party tried to get me to switch. Every single year, leaders of the Republican Party came to me asking me to switch because I am the most conservative person in this state and always have been for over 20 years, which is why I've always had Republican support. I have protected life, the unborn, for 20 years and prosecuted women who have ingested drugs while pregnant and prosecuted men who have harmed the unborn. I was the first public official in South Carolina to call for the firing squad in South Carolina. They laughed at me when I did that. Republicans and Democrats called me and said I was crazy. It took me 5 years, but I got the legislature to pass it. I have put evil men on death row. I am the only candidate in office that has done that, governor or attorney general. And I have sent a cop killer to the firing squad, the same firing squad that I've called for. Well, they couldn't get me off the ballot, so then comes the dark money. And you've seen the videos, you've seen the printouts and everything else, and Pascoe and Biden and all these things. And it doesn't bother me because another guy went through the exact same thing by the name of Donald Trump. He gave, Trump's not a Republican. He gave Kamala Harris money. You can't vote for Trump, according to Jeb Bush. He gave money to the Clintons. But you know what the thing is about Donald Trump that I actually admire? Because he's like David Pascoe. Donald Trump, let me tell you something about David Pascoe. The biggest lie they say about me is that I'm a wolf in sheep's clothing. I am a wolf in wolf's clothing. So is he. And that's why Republicans voted for him, and that's why Republicans are going to vote for me overwhelmingly in this election. And when I showed that flyer to my friend Joe White, conservative Freedom Caucus Republican up at the State House, he was more angry about it than I was. And he was like, yeah, what it doesn't say is that you took back the endorsement after he picked Kamala Harris, because that was principled to me. It doesn't say how you, as a Democrat, were the only person that would endorse conservative Republicans in the 2024 election when Republicans like one of my opponents would not. And he went on and on and on about the other conservative things I've done. Like, it didn't say, he said, that you, as a Democrat, led the statewide effort to make sure that a pro-choice, pro-Planned Parenthood endorsed lawyer legislator who is running for judge didn't get elected when the Republican leadership supported that candidate. I took him down because it was the right thing to do and because I didn't want a liberal judge, another liberal judge in South Carolina. That's who I am. That's David Pascoe. Now let me tell you what I'm going to do as your Attorney General. Let me get specific as to the things I'm going to concentrate on and how we're going to end the culture of corruption in South Carolina. First, my pledge is that I will never run for any other office but Attorney General. I think you guys, if you want to run for another office like governor or Congress or senator or something, you have to be able to make friends. I hope you know by now that I'm not good at making friends. All right? I have only one desire. As I said, I've always wanted to be a prosecutor. I want to be the chief prosecutor, and I want to straighten this place up. The only position I will ever run for is Attorney General. If I play my cards right and I work as hard as I know I can do it, I will do it one term and retire. I've already promised my wife that. I'm not looking to be Attorney General to go into private practice afterwards. We have enough money now. Like I said, I've been working 33 years. Started working at the age of 12. Go look at my Social Security thing. But we're ready to retire. I'm going to clean this state up, and then I'm going to retire, whether it's one term or two. I'm going to concentrate on children. I'm going to concentrate on corruption, illegal immigration, and crime. And I'm going to talk about all 4 of those things. And I'm going to obviously, I'm going to concentrate on a lot of other things, like making sure our state sovereignty is protected and many other things. Go to my website that is on the card and look at my entire plan, okay? But children, I always mention children first. There are only a couple of times when the philosopher that I follow, there were only a couple times in the New Testament when he got mad. One of the times was when he was talking about our children, and he said, you're better off with a millstone around your neck and thrown in the depths of the sea if you hurt one of my children. So children will always be my number 1 priority. We are going to advocate the death penalty in South Carolina? No, strike that. We are going to seek the death penalty in South Carolina for child rapists. What a lot of people don't know is the crime is already on the books. I'm going to let the United States Supreme Court tell me that I'm wrong. I don't think they will. We have a totally different court than we had in 2008 when they ruled that it was unconstitutional, a 5-4 opinion. And I don't want to get too graphic. I'm not going to tell too many stories because we do have children here. But we're going to do that. I'm also going to advocate for the legislature to pass a death penalty statute for child trafficking, because it's one of the worst crimes you can commit as well. So I'm going to advocate for that. The other thing that we have got to do in South Carolina to help our children and protect them better is we have got to do something about our low prosecution rates and conviction rates for child pornography cases. I'm going to call them internet crimes is what we'll call them. With all due respect, internet crime division has always been abysmal for over 15 years. And it's no one person's fault. I am not castigating the current occupant. It's not his fault. It's all our faults. All our faults. But when you have a single-digit conviction rate for internet crimes, and you know what I'm talking about, in certain counties, and you're only sending 1 in 10 that are convicted or charged with internet crimes to prison, that's not good. Go read the news today in the Low Country about a case out of Charleston. That's all I'm going to say. Have you seen it? Yep, go read it. That's all I'm going to say. This is how we're going to improve those conviction rates. As a career prosecutor, I know what you have to do. We got to stop trying these cases, prosecuting these cases out of Columbia, South Carolina. I'm going to give the funds to the local solicitors' offices and have the solicitors prosecute those cases. You're going to get a much better conviction rate. You're going to get to the cases faster on your docket, and you're going to send more men who deserve to go to prison by having a local solicitor from Pickens County try the case instead of some kid right out of law school in Columbia, South Carolina, who don't want to have to drive to Pickens. All right? So we're going to prosecute those cases locally. The other thing that I'm going to do to make sure we take care of our children better, very briefly, it's a program that I've been involved in for all 33 years of my career. It's called the Church Diversion Program. I brought it to the First Circuit. When we send a child to the Department of Juvenile Justice, they just learn to become better criminals. They're on the path to going to the Department of Corrections. For that child, now some of them, unfortunately, that carry guns, commit armed robberies, commit burglary first, assaults, murders. Not only do they need to go to DJJ, sometimes they need to be waived and treated as adults. But for the vast majority of our children, they start off as truants. They get in trouble for breaking into a garage to steal a beer. They shoplifting. Instead of sending them to DJJ, we are going to assign them to churches that are trained in the youth mentor program through the local solicitors or the AG's office. And they are going to provide that child or those children with a mentor. They're going to provide them with a tutor for school. They're going to check on the child's school life, their home life, and report back to the solicitor's office and the court and tell us how that child is doing so we can get a child on the straight and narrow. I'm going to go off topic because this came up yesterday. Let me tell you how great this program is. And this wasn't even a juvenile. 20 years ago almost, when I was a much taller and better looking solicitor, some numbskull, 18 years old, this was an adult. I created an adult church diversion program for one person. He decided he thought it was funny to hang a noose in his classroom at Orangeburg Calhoun Technical College in front of his predominantly black class and for his black professor to come in and see. And this is Orangeburg. Orangeburg was outraged. The nation, it made national news, was outraged. The solicitor was outraged. But I know as a prosecutor, I have to wait and get all the evidence and all the facts. Find out who this person is, why he did it, interview people. Everybody in the world was calling on me to get a conviction. And that would have been the easy thing to do. I mean, he was guilty. He would have gotten probation. It wasn't even but still, get a conviction, put it on his record. I decided that wasn't the right thing to do when I learned who he was. And that he was just being an idiot. And that his black students, when I took the time to talk to them in the classroom, his black classmates actually liked him. They were mad at him for doing that. And even the professor. So what I did was, I had a summit. And I brought together in my office at least a dozen black and white ministers from Orangeburg County and Calhoun County. And I put him in a church diversion program where I made him go to an African American church for 6 months and then write me a paper on the meaning of that noose, on why people would be offended by that. And he passed the program, and I dismissed his charge. And 3 years ago, I was in the Piggly Wiggly, probably buying pork chops. And this man came up to me. I didn't even know who he was. It's been almost 20 years. And he had a child with him, about the age of one of your children. And he said, Mr. Pascoe, I am such and such. I still didn't know who it was, like Ann. He said, well, I'm the person who hung that rope in a classroom, and you gave me a second chance. And I'm an engineer now, and this is my child, and my wife is at home. I'm as proud of that as just about any conviction I've ever had. So that program works. It works for adults. You know it's going to work for our children. We're going to have that throughout. Before I talk about corruption, let me talk about illegal immigration real fast. Despite the fact that we have a great administration now to work with on immigration, we still have a lot of problems. It's not their fault, and it's not really even the state's fault yet. But we got a lot more work to do because of the open borders of the 4 previous years. I mean, that was a disaster. A young woman last year by the name of LaShonda Thompson was murdered in Lancaster County. Mother of 2. She was murdered by 6 thugs, 6 illegal aliens, and it shouldn't have happened. And it wouldn't have happened if we would have a new Illegal Immigration Reform Act, and that is what I'm pushing legislators to pass now. Back in 2011, I think it was, our legislature passed an Illegal Immigration Reform Act, which made it illegal to be an illegal immigrant in South Carolina. It was a 5-year felony. The Obama administration sued South Carolina and won in court to have that act struck down. I want to see an act like that enacted again, because I believe if we just tighten up the language, it'll pass constitutional muster. Most importantly, it'll pass constitutional muster because a lot of what the Supreme Court relies on in immigration laws passed by states, they say, we look at what the executive branch's policies are and their enforcement. Does anybody in this room think that Donald Trump is going to sue the state of South Carolina when we pass an Illegal Immigration Reform Act? No, I think he's going to applaud it. And if that act was in place, LaShonda would still be alive because the alleged gunman in her case had been arrested just before it for domestic violence, but released from jail. If we had that felony in place, he would have still been in jail, and probably picked up by ICE. If she wouldn't have been murdered, I don't want another LaShonda Thompson. I don't want 2 more children without a mother. So I want to see our legislature pass another Illegal Immigration Reform Act. I'm going to work with them to do that. Corruption. I believe that an attorney general's primary duty is to be where corruption needs an adversary. And that's where you're going to find me, where corruption needs an adversary. I am going to establish what's going to be called the Public Corruption Unit, the PCU. It is going to be the most anti-corruption unit in the history of this state. We are going to hunt like it's prey. Some low-bottom fruit things that this group is going to do, in the interest of time, we are going to look through every elected official's statement of economic interest and their campaign disclosure forms. Because, my friends, the crime is right under our noses usually. For example, a couple years ago, I don't even think it was that long ago, but I'm reading the newspaper, and I'm reading how Democrat Marvin Pendarvis of the South Carolina legislature is doing these things. They were, in my opinion, they were crimes. But nobody, because we're so apathetic in this state, was doing anything. I picked up the phone and I called Chief Keel and I said, these are crimes. What do you need from me? He said, solicitor, get me a letter saying you want an investigation and that you'll be the lead prosecutor and I'll investigate it. Did it. Long story short, I got him indicted by the feds and he's no longer a legislator. I do not put up with corruption. I don't care if you're with my political party or against my political party. I'm going to take you out. Just like I took him out. Just like I took those other 5 legislators out. The PCU, and we are going to use retirees as volunteers, trained in the program. I'm going to have them trained in how to go through the public reports. When we see an elected official who buys suits with his campaign account, it's going to get flagged, and I'm going to take a really close look at it and see if it's against the law. I never mention names, by the way. I am not Letitia James of North New York, who should be disbarred. I go after conduct, not people. When we see a legislator or senator who puts down that they paid their American Express card $6,000 for quote-unquote reimbursement, well, first of all, that is against the law in itself. The problem we have in South Carolina, though, is that guess who oversees a House member or a state senator? House ethics and Senate ethics. It's the fox literally guarding the hen house. But here's their problem. They don't get to tell the Attorney General whether it's a crime or not. So I will investigate whether that $6,000 really went to reimbursement or whether it went to personal use, because I've seen that rodeo before. That's how I took down the Speaker of the House. The other thing that the PCU is going to do, we are going to have the most transparent state during my tenure as Attorney General in history. How many times have y'all heard of a citizen or a watchdog group or the press, FOIA county council or a town administration or a school board for information, and they get blown off? And there's nothing they can do about it unless they want to go hire a lawyer and spend money and sue and then try to get damages. And almost nobody can do that. Too often we hear that. Well, from now on, if you FOIA something, anyone, and they don't abide by the FOIA laws, I will be your lawyer in that lawsuit for that information. And I promise you, the Attorney General's office will get that information very, very quickly. Thank you. Thank you. Because transparency is the most important thing we can have in this state, with everything from our elections to that. One more thing with regards to FOIA and everything. How many times have we heard where a town council or a county council goes into executive session to talk about the budget, talk about more than personnel matters? When I am your Attorney General and that happens and you tell me, I will send members or a member of the PCU and they will go to that next meeting and they will remind that town council or that county council or that school board that that is a violation of the law and it is subject to prosecution. See, it's easy stuff. People say, how are you going to clean up Columbia? How are you going to clean up South Carolina? It's so difficult. Easy. I'm going to be the first person to enforce the laws of the state of South Carolina because I don't give a darn about making friends. We're going to do this. Our sons are old now. They're 25 to 30. They're off our payroll. We have our retirement. We're ready to retire. I'm doing this because I've lost too much sleep since the grand jury probe, and I saw all the bones and where they're buried since I took over that probe in 2014 and didn't get out of it until 2022. I'm fed up, and the corruption is coming to an end. Crime, and I'm going to end with this. How much time do I have? I've been going a little too long.
Dave, we have got 2 hours. We've got
Yeah.
it's 7:15. We need to wrap up by about 7:45.
We got. I'm going to finish on this, and then I'll answer questions.
Any questions you want to take?
Well, then I'm going to filibuster. I don't want any questions. I'm going to keep going. Let's on crime. A couple of quick things, and I'm going to end on something. We're going to have a policy on repeat offenders, a policy of no bond. Now, I can't promise you that they're not going to get bond, but we can have a policy throughout the state of moving to revoke bonds and trying to get their bond revoked, and we'll leave it up to a judge. One of my good friends, Scarlett Wilson, she is a bulldog at this. She's a solicitor in Charleston County, and I have followed her lead over the years. If you're out on a bond, that's a privilege, and then they recommit. It's an automatic bond revocation on my office's part unless we see some mitigating circumstance. If y'all go look at the news, I'm really proud of my office. We just held a bunch of bondsmen, one in particular, in contempt of court. I don't know if he's out of jail yet. It's been 2 weeks. He might still be in jail for all I know. I need to check with my deputy tomorrow. But we don't play when it comes to bond revocations. We found out that they were doing the bond monitors wrong, the ankle bracelets, and we locked them up. And the judges kept them there. The death penalty, this is what I want to end on. Because, look, not every murder is a death penalty murder. The vast, vast majority are not. 99 at least percent are not death penalty eligible, and they shouldn't be death penalty. Okay, and if every murder was death penalty, we wouldn't move any cases. But sometimes there's evil that is so bad that we have no choice but to try to get the ultimate penalty and leave it up to a judge or a jury on whether that person should face death or not. But I had lunch with a solicitor back in August. And that elected solicitor told me he was justifying why he didn't seek the death penalty on a cop killer. Why he didn't seek the death penalty on someone who had assaulted and murdered. I'm just going to use the term assaulted. But it was worse than an assault. Assaulted and murdered a 2-year-old boy over the course of a week. And I didn't understand it, but I didn't judge him. Again, death is different. Death penalty trials are hard. You are in for a war if you try death penalty cases. I'm just telling you. You know, as a solicitor, you are going to be maligned. I've been accused of being a liar, of prosecutorial misconduct, because to the defense attorneys, they believe they're trying to save somebody's life, and maybe they are. They are. And there are no rules in going after us. So it's a war. I told y'all that for as long as I can remember, I've wanted to be a prosecutor. The truth of the matter is, for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a police officer. Some of y'all are as old as me. You don't grow up in the 70s and watch Hill Street Blues and Kojak and Chips and all those other great shows and not want to be a police officer. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. I moved down here in 1985 to go to the Citadel, which I need to say on the record for everybody, the world to hear, is a far superior school than VMI, where you went to school. Virginia Military Institute. But I came down here in 85 to go to the Citadel. When I was in the 3rd grade, and I mean this is not a joke, true story. I went to career day as Lieutenant Theo Kojak of the Manhattan South Police Department. Any of y'all remember Kojak? Okay. That's right, and that's what I had. I had the lollipop, I had the hat, and I even had a badge. And when Miss Hodges told me that I got an A, I said, "Who loves you, baby?" I didn't know that I wanted to be a prosecutor until I was 15 years old, and I read a book called The Pursuit of Justice. And that's when I knew, hey, that's what I want to be. I want to take on crime. I want to take on corruption. And from 15 years old all the way through law school, everything I did was to be a prosecutor. And even in my 3 years of law school, all 3 years, I clerked at the United States Attorney's Office with federal prosecutors. It was 1983 when I was 15. Read that book, decided to be a prosecutor. Something else happened in 1983. A man by the name of Michael Motti was born in Richmond, Virginia. Michael Motti also went to Chamberlain Elementary School. Now, I don't know what he went as for Miss Hodges' third grade career day, but when he was 15, just like when I was 15, he also professed to the world what he wanted to be. See, Michael Motti got into a 9-hour standoff with law enforcement in Virginia. And when they finally arrested him, he gave a statement, and he said, "I want to kill one of you one day. I want to kill a police officer." Motti went to DJJ. He got out, he assaulted someone, and he went to prison. In 2004, March of 2004, I was living in St. Matthews. I'd been an assistant solicitor for 12 years and a first assistant. And I wanted to be solicitor of the First Circuit, which is Orangeburg, Calhoun, and Dorchester counties. And I went and filed for solicitor in March of 2004 to be the solicitor of Calhoun County. 2 months after I filed for solicitor, Michael Motti got out of prison in Virginia. He went down the street from his house and murdered someone with a machete. He stole a gun and a car, and he drove to North Carolina, where he went into a gas station, and he shot the store clerk at point blank range, reached over, put his palm print on the counter on video, and shot the store clerk one more time to make sure he was dead. He took his beer, his $60, got in his car, and he drove towards Columbia, South Carolina. When he got to Columbia, he carjacked someone. I theorized that he carjacked that person and didn't murder them because he was either out of ammunition or almost out. He then took that car and started to drive down I-26 east towards Charleston, towards I-95. He got off at exit 139, where Christy and I drove right by today, coming here from Orangeburg, right down the street from our house. When he got off at the exit, he went to the Pilot gas station and started casing it to rob it. The women got nervous, called the sheriff's office. Law enforcement showed up. Motti ran through the woods. Next time you ever drive down I-26, I want you to remember exit 139. Look at those woods right there, and that Pilot station is still there. Motti ran through the woods. He found a house on a pond, a little pond house, a vacation pond house, or a weekend pond house. And he broke in that Sunday. And he went in there and he realized he hit pay dirt. He realized that he was going to accomplish his dream. He was in the home of Captain Jim Myers of the Orangeburg Police Department. He knew that because Captain Myers' awards were on the wall, his police files were there, and Motti rummaged through those files. His badge was there. When Captain Myers showed up that night, Motti was laying in wait, and he executed him. And he burned his body. He stole his badge. He took his uniform. He took his police-issued truck, and he took his police-issued automatic .22 rifle. It was an automatic. Got in the truck, started driving towards south in Florida. When he got to Florida, somewhere near Cocoa Beach, law enforcement pulled him over because they knew the vehicle was stolen. The two Florida officers didn't know why or what the person had done other than he had stolen a car, stolen the truck. When Motti pulled the truck over, he jumped out with the rifle, looked at the officers, and then took off running, and a Belgian Malinois, a canine, caught him. Without incident, Motti didn't fire a shot. When they get back to the headquarters, that's when the police officer realized, this guy's a cop killer. And in a moment of gratitude, he walked up to Michael Motti and told him, in all seriousness, he told him this: "You don't have to say a word, but I want to thank you for letting me go home to my family tonight." Motti's response was, and I'm going to edit it, Motti's response was, exact words were this: "I only had 2 shots left in a 3-shot burst, and I couldn't get you, your partner, and that effing dog." I tell y'all that because that is evil. Cop killer, evil. When I became solicitor in January of 2025 after winning the election, I filed for the death penalty on Michael Motti. Before we took the case to trial, even before we started to pick a jury, the victim's wife, Amy, beautiful woman, the most magnificent person in the world, just a heart of gold, came up to me. She was Captain Myers' wife. And even though Motti had never shown any penance, she came up to me and asked me, "David, will you please consider just pleading Motti to life without parole? Let him get life and rot in prison." And I told Amy, any other case, I would do what you want. But I said, "Amy, there's a certain evil that deserves the ultimate punishment. Amy, more importantly to me, because you are giving me the easy out. I won't have to go through the fight. You're giving me the easy out, and I can blame it on you. But the problem is this: if David Pascoe in the state of South Carolina won't stand up for your husband, Captain Jim Myers, who wore the uniform to protect us, they're going to say David Pascoe in the state of South Carolina won't stand up for anybody." So I tried Michael Motti. I convicted Michael Motti. And last spring, Michael Motti went before the firing squad that I called on this state to bring. He met justice. Thank you. And I'm going to end by giving you my 2 pledges. First, when I am your Attorney General, we will never have a solicitor justify not seeking the death penalty for a cop killer. It's not going to happen. Because as the Attorney General, I will have jurisdiction over every criminal case in the state. And second, when we tolerate what we know to be wrong, we strike a blow against justice everywhere. When we tolerate what we know to be wrong, we strike a blow against justice everywhere. When I am your Attorney General, the toleration of corruption in South Carolina will come to an end. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Before we take a question or two, allow me to actually apologize for the incorrect information in the bio.
No.
It's a good example of don't trust AI.
Oh.
Verify. I simply put in, and you guys try it, go to ChatGPT and put in short bio for prosecutor David Pascoe. And what I read is what I got, and I didn't verify, and I sincerely apologize for it.
No, don't apologize. There's nothing but, because I'll tell you a quick story about AI. Last night, all right, so today, do y'all know Representative Joe White? Yes. Okay, he's my hero. He's my hero. He's my man. And one of the problems we have with our ethics laws is that, do you know that the only crime in South Carolina that has a statute of limitations is illegal lobbying? Go figure. We're going to allow lobbyists and legislators to be a special class, right? So I've been calling since 2018 to eliminate the statute of limitations. And Joe White, we had a press conference today to introduce legislation. Here's my point about AI. I get a phone call from one of the guys on my campaign. Are you sure that that's the only crime that doesn't have a statute of limitations? I said, well, yeah, I think so. I think I know better, yeah. He said, well, that's not what ChatGPT says. I said, well, what does ChatGPT say? That there's a statute of limitations for murder, armed robbery? I said, put your phone up. You don't know what you're talking about. That was it. There is no statute of limitations for anything but statute for illegal lobbying, but I hope that...
Well, can I hit you with a question?
Yeah.
Judicial reform, you were talking about how the legislators elect the judges, and we don't have any separation of power in South Carolina. And we could get into an hour-long discussion about how it happened, but all of the power in the state government is vested in the legislature.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
give me your idea on how we should reform, judicial reform in South Carolina to fix that.
Great question. I got two answers for you on how we should fix it. Back after the corruption probe, that's when I realized we have got to change the way we pick our judges. Because again, I'm calling these legislators in front of this judge, and it was you talk about an all-out war. It was pretty tough, but I got him convicted. But I knew then, we got to pick judges differently. So starting in January 2022, I started going across the state talking to Republican groups about the need for, quote, judicial reform. That we've got to take the lawyer legislators, in fact, all the legislators, off of the Judicial Merit Selection Committee. Y'all know what the JMSC is? That is where judges get screened. And that's where most, not all, but most of the shenanigans take place. They say, for example, David Pascoe and Rick Tate are running for judge, and Rick is by far the more qualified person to be a judge, but the lawyer legislators all love David Pascoe. They make sure Rick Tate's not qualified, and I come out unopposed. That's where the shenanigans take place. So I said, take the legislators off the JMSC. And it has taken forever, but now, finally, in the House at least, in the House passed a bill 3 weeks ago, I think it was, taking all legislators off of the JMSC. All the members of the JMSC will now be gubernatorial appointments. But the problem is the Senate. And Joe White's right about this. I think you really think the lawyer legislators in the House wanted to pass JMSC reform? No. But they know that the Senate's not going to pass it unless you, the people, push your senator to pass it. You need to go tell Tom Alexander and all these other upstate senators, pass that judicial reform bill or vote him out of office in 2 years.
We got to have judicial independence.
Got to. How can you have an independent judiciary, Rick, when one branch solely hires the judiciary, solely fires the judiciary, and solely funds the judiciary? You can't. Now, I have another solution, but it's going to take a longer time to get to that. I meant for the judiciary on what to do. Do y'all want to hear what the Pascoe plan would be? Because you remember this. The reason I've been calling for JMSC reform is you don't have to have a constitutional amendment to do that. A simple statute fixed that, okay? The problem is it's constitutional that our legislature has to vote for the judges. So you'd have to get a constitutional amendment to change that. But I'm thinking that maybe my plan might even be able to bypass that. This is what I want to see done. I want to see a JMSC made up of all gubernatorial appointments. That's the executive branch. They will screen the judges. They will determine who's qualified. I'm okay with letting the legislators elect the judges initially. I'm okay with that. But here's the Pascoe plan, which I didn't invent this. It's actually called the Missouri plan. Other states do it. Instead of having judicial elections where the judges are properly elected, what happens is at the end of that judge's term, they then go before you, the voters, and they're on the ballot by themselves, but we give them an up or a down. I think it's as close to a perfect system as you can get because we involve the executive branch, we involve the legislative branch, and then ultimately, after they've been a judge for their 6-year term, it involves we, the people. I like that.
Does anybody want to ask a question? Just wait till I get to you with the mic so it'll be recorded on the video. So anybody want? Yeah. Here you go, Joe.
Appreciate that. First, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate you coming and laying out your views. If I heard you right, it sounds like you want to make immigration status not only a federal crime, but also a state crime, right?
Yes.
So I've always been kind of a linear thinker, and I look for, what's the problem and then what's the solution, okay? So if immigration is already a crime, what's the problem we're trying to solve if we make it a state crime as well?
Great question. But again, let's go back to Larisha Thompson, right? That defendant was charged not long before the murder with domestic violence, but because it's like a 30, 60-day offense, he got a bond and was let out. If we had a state crime that made it a felony to be an illegal alien, after he got picked up on that domestic violence charge, he also would have been charged with that felony and probably would have remained detained, which would have allowed ICE the opportunity to come and pick him up.
Why wouldn't he have been referred to ICE immediately?
Because he got out on bond on an easy bond. With a domestic violence charge, third degree, you're not going to get a very high bond.
I guess that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Why was he released? He's a violent criminal.
Well, he wasn't violent. He was at the time. He just had the domestic violence. But if we have that, the magistrate court offense, okay, where you, by constitution, you have to have a bond. But if we have him charged with a felony of illegal immigration, then he's going to stay in jail. And he never would have gotten out of jail, and it would help ICE agents and the federal government in determining whether he needs to be deported or not. What's the harm of having a felony statute? You're here illegally. Why can't we have a felony statute that says you're here illegally? 5-year felony. I just think we need to tighten up the language. That's why you also have a great question. To make it constitutional, we'll have to tighten up the language a little bit. But again, we have the Trump administration. They're not going to be Barack Obama. They're not going to come and sue the state of South Carolina for enforcing immigration laws.
Somebody, okay.
Great
Here you go.
question.
Introduce yourself.
My name's Asa Forrest. I go to Clemson. So your church diversion program, love it. I think it's
I
great.
sent 2 to Clemson.
Okay, awesome. So what does that look like funding-wise? And then also, do you have connections across the state, like church connections to where
Yes.
you would get that plugged in?
Fantastic question about the funding. So look, again, I didn't reinvent the wheel with church diversion. It's been around for 33 years. I was in the beginning aspects of it as an assistant solicitor in Richland County, getting the program started. First time I was ever in the newspaper, I was actually in the Philadelphia Inquirer in either 93 or 94, talking about this church diversion program. So I'm not reinventing the wheel. It's actually already been a statewide program before, but for some reason in the last 5, 6 years or even decade, we've gotten away from it. You asked about funding. I have a theory as to why we've gotten away from the program. I could be wrong, but I have a theory. It doesn't cost anything. Nobody makes any money off the church diversion program. So maybe, just maybe, when you've got the best diversion program in the history of this state, maybe that's why it's kind of drifted away. Nobody's making any money off of it. It doesn't cost a thing. We would sometimes do a nominal charge for the applicant, for the person going in the program, if the family could afford it. And when I say nominal, I mean like $50, but doesn't cost a thing. Best diversion program, number 1, because it works. Number 2, because it's free. This is calling on the community, calling on the churches and the youth organizations to put up and help our society.
We got a couple more.
Yep, thank you.
Here you go, ma'am. I know people are mic shy, but it won't be. Okay, go for it.
Hey, yeah, I'm Cassie Walls. I teach full-time at Greenville Tech. I'm a criminal justice professor, so I've been
Oh,
around
wow.
law enforcement for about 20 years now. I was a police officer in Georgia. Quick question for you. I know that a lot of professors around the state and a lot of sheriffs and chiefs have kind of joined in this. What do you propose to do about reforming police training here in South Carolina? We have one academy,
Yeah.
one, and we've had a lot of opposition to maybe decentralizing the academy. And I don't know if everybody in here realizes, but when South Carolina decided to extend their academy training from 8 to 12 weeks, do y'all have any idea what those additional 4 weeks are about? Watching videos. So we have our police candidates watching videos for 4 weeks. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are this. I've never really thought about it. I would love to get your input before I leave today because... Okay. No, but I would like your input because I do know this. We need better training. We need better training for law enforcement. We need better training for law enforcement. We need better training for prosecutors. Without a doubt, we need better training. Which one? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And
Now, she's not going to let me stay and listen to all of your ideas. But we'll give you our email. Yeah.
there was something I should have said at the very beginning of this tonight, and I feel terrible that I didn't. We lost a Pickens County officer this week, India Rackley, I believe is her name, India Rackley. So remember her family in your prayers. It was not in the line of duty, but still years of service here in Pickens County, and we appreciate it. And thank you for your service, teaching our kids, our young adults, we should say. Yeah, her patrol car is parked at, Daniel just told us that her patrol car is parked at the LAC in Pickens, and you can go by and sign the car? Well, I think they got a card. Oh, a card, okay. I got you. I misunderstood. One more question, and I think we'll have to wrap it up. If you would introduce yourself.
My name is Danny Graybill. I'm a bailiff with the court in Pickens County.
Okay.
Pickens County is the worst county in the state for meth. We have 95% of our cases in the general sessions is meth.
Wow.
What I see is
95% of the drug cases?
yes, no,
Okay.
basically 95% of our cases is meth. It's a major problem in this county.
Yeah.
It used to be that we made our own meth. Now the meth comes in from the cartel. That's another big problem. But the problem is they get convicted, or they plead usually, and they get probation. And then they go out and they directly start again. And the judge, when they come in, the judge will ask them, how far did you go in school? And almost 100% of them went to the 9th or 10th grade. They didn't graduate. So the two problems we have is they get probation 3 or 4 or 5 times, and they're not finishing school. Mm-hmm. The kids that finish school don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. But we have a major problem in our county with meth.
Meth is, I learned this, I tried a trafficking meth case almost 20 years ago when I was a solicitor in Orangeburg, and we learned during that trial, because when I started as a solicitor, I didn't know what ice was. I meant the drug ice, or meth. We didn't have it in South Carolina in 1993, but it was on the books. But then by 2006, when I'm a solicitor, 2 years into it or a year into it, I'm trying a meth case, and we learned meth is by far the most addictive of any of the drugs. And meth addicts tell you that. They just can't get off of it. We got to have a two-sword approach on something like that. I didn't realize it was that bad, but I'm not shocked because Pickens still has a lot of rural areas too. The two-pronged approach is you have to have a really, really good drug court to do everything you can to get them off of meth, which is very, very difficult, and try to get them some structure, like get them their GED. At the same time, if they're charged with trafficking meth, if it's their second, third, fourth offense, particularly third, fourth offense, then we got to send them to prison. We've got to protect us. I'm worried about us. I actually, my heart goes out. I've got empathy for a drug user, but my concern is, where are they going to get their money to continue that drug habit? They're going to break into our homes. They're going to break into our cars. They're going to commit violent acts to do that. So, you got to have a two-pronged attack. Really good drug courts and diversion programs for the users. But if they're second, third, fourth, fifth, you got to send them to prison. You've got to.
Sure, Neil, just make it quick. They want us out of this room by 8:30, so it takes a little bit to break down.
So as you were saying, for trafficking up, should we do some kind of mandatory minimum sentencing if we catch people actually manufacturing methamphetamine?
And there is a mandatory minimum sentencing to manufacturing meth, particularly second offense, and depending on the amounts, there already is a mandatory minimum. We just got to try not to reduce the cases. But again, it's such a complex answer. We also have to make sure that we have better training of the officers to make good cases, better training of the drug prosecutors to prosecute the cases. Wow, 90, you think that many cases? A lot.
The majority of our cases, we
Oh,
see very little cocaine, we see very little.
Same here.
It's all that.
You really don't, yeah, that's when back in 1990s, it was cocaine and crack. And then and meth has taken over. And unfortunately, heroin is coming back, and pills. Mm-hmm.
You don't worry about fentanyl and meth, because meth is fast enough. We don't have to have
all the more reason to get people that are drug addicts and to go do that because they don't think they have to worry about fentanyl.
But one of the big things I see is somehow we've got to improve our graduation rate. Where kids aren't stuck, well, that's all they can do is sell drugs.
Many, many years ago, I did and this is why when I talk about church diversion and how it was important, I did a quick study when I first became solicitor, and I did this as an assistant in Richland. When I was solicitor in like 2006 again, I looked at 25 people that had been charged with murder. 25 people sitting in our jails charged with murder. I said, I had my prosecutors go pull their juvenile record. I want to see what their first crimes were if they had a juvenile record. Think about this. Out of 25, 21 started off as truants. 21 started off as truants. How many of those 25 would have been saved? How many of those victims would still be alive today had we done a better job? And that's when I say we, all of us. When it comes to our children, it's all of our faults. How many of those people would still be alive had we done a better job of making sure those 21 students went to school? I mean, that's a huge percentage.
Not to use a cliche, but as they say, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And I mean, we're talking about people's children here. You know, it's really sad. And anything we can do to save our children is, I just drift off into cliches, but our children, there's nothing more important than our children.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can't thank you enough for driving all the way here from Orangeburg.
Oh, man, I had a blast. Thank you. It was worth it for the food.
I hear you. Pretty good barbecue.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
We'll wrap it up.
Thank you.
A quick announcement. If you'd like to see this gentleman again, he will be back here March the 19th, along with the other two Republican candidates for Attorney General. We will be at Forest Acres Elementary School. Joey Hudson from WORD has agreed to come in and help as a moderator. Joey's a good guy. So if you'd like to see all three of these guys on stage and to help you make up your mind on which way you want to cast your vote, please come and join us. All are welcome and encouraged to attend. Please come. Have a good night and be safe going home.